So, as expected, and as I warned you, and as we already knew, U.S. troops are staying in Afghanistan. But we just got the news today that they may be staying longer than the longest proposal yet. They may be staying indefinitely. So AFP reports, quote, under the current plan outlined by President Barack Obama, the U.S. force will dwindle to 9,800 troops by January, along with roughly 2,000 allied forces, and all American soldiers will be out by the end of 2016. But after a months-long electoral dispute that postponed the signing of a crucial U.S.-Afghan security agreement, there are questions about the readiness of Afghan forces and whether allied governments will have arrangements in place for their troops to deploy by 2015, officials said. And then here's the most important line. Pushing back the timeline is now, quote, an option. So you know what that means. If you guys follow politics even somewhat closely, you should know by this point that whenever there's an administration official throwing something out there that's very unpopular as an option, that means we're trying to ease you into it, but we're going to end up doing that. But we just want to slowly, it's like adding KY jelly before you fucking ram it in. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're talking about here. So at the height of the war in Afghanistan, we had 100,000 troops in there. Right now, we have 27,000, and we may have as many as 9,800 as far as the eye can see. These really are never-ending wars. They really are. And then it's always hilarious to me when they make the argument, as they did before in Afghanistan, that it's okay, public, don't worry, we are withdrawing the troops, we're just going to leave 9,800 there. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone whenever I hear that. I look around to see if other people caught how absurd that is. Saying you're going to keep 9,800 troops in there and calling it a withdrawal is like fucking and saying, it's all right, I'm going to pull out, and then you leave the tip in. No, that's continuing the war. They go, it's okay, we're not going on any combat missions. Right, the same way that the troops in Iraq right now on the ground, the Green Berets, they're just training other forces to fight ISIS. They're not fighting ISIS themselves on the ground, even though the Daily Beast had an article a few weeks ago that said that's in fact exactly what they're doing. So it's the same game over and over and over. And there's a word for it, isn't there? When you go into a country, a sovereign country, you start fighting, and then you choose to not leave. What's that word I'm looking for? Oh, yes, occupation. But I'm sure that the minerals in Afghanistan and the opium in Afghanistan, which, by the way, has seen a tremendous increase since the war began, and the military-industrial complex, all these things have nothing to do with the financial reason to stay there. I'm sure that's the case. That's just a coincidence. What we're actually there to do is just to provide peace and safety and security to the people of Afghanistan. Now, this is where the conversation gets really, really interesting, because it is true, according to multiple respected news outlets, that whenever the U.S. draws down and whenever we pull back, the Taliban does regain control of many regions in Afghanistan. So it's not like that's a concern that's not real. It is real. However, my response to that is the same as the libertarian response to that. Okay, it's not our business. Are we really supposed to just go every place on the planet where there's bad people and try to fight back the bad people from taking control because that's what we want? I mean, we'd have to go to the Congo. We'd have to go to Myanmar. We'd have to go to North Korea. I mean, the list goes on of all the places with brutal dictators and authoritarian regimes and military juntas. What are we going to do? We're going to go to all these places and just fight back the bad people? There's no doubt that Afghanistan, at some point down the road, is going to have some sort of repressive rule, probably some sort of pseudo-Sharia law or full Sharia law in place. But guess what? It's none of our business. I feel for the people of Afghanistan, don't get me wrong, the people who don't want to be under Taliban control and who hate the Taliban and who feel their terror. Believe me, I feel for them, but it's not our business to be involved, because when we're involved and when we stay there, all of the anger gets directed towards us. Because the narrative is, and this narrative is right, by the way, that, oh, we break these regions and then we increase extremism. We provide the fertile soil in which extremism grows because we kill so many civilians and we, loot the natural resources, and then people grow up in depravity and poverty, and then next thing you know, they turn to the only people giving them any answer, which is the Taliban, al-qaeda, ISIS, you name it. So I think it's true that the Taliban, let's say we pulled out tomorrow, which is what I want to do in Afghanistan, just take everybody out tomorrow. I think it's true that eventually the Taliban would take over gigantic swaths of the country, and I feel horrible about that. But I don't think it's our place to stay there forever, because that's the only other option. Whenever we leave, the Taliban is going to take back giant parts of the country. So what are we going to do? We're just going to stay there forever? Continue to spend taxpayer money? Continue to watch American men and women die to fight for fucking Kandahar or Jalalabad? Is that how are you supposed to explain that to a 19-year-old kid from Alabama or a 26-year-old from Hawaii? Hey, go fight for your country in this place called Jalalabad, which you didn't even know fucking existed 3 months before you joined the army. How do you explain that? You can't explain that because it's a silly reason for our people to go fight and die. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The only time we should use American military force is to defend imminent attacks against the nation. That's it. Defensive wars. That's the old school way we used to do it. So we need to go back to that. The American people want to go back to that. Only 17% of the American people want to stay in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is now less popular than Vietnam. That's wildly unpopular. So we know what the answer is. We know what the American people want, but of course the establishment and the people in power are not listening to us. They're continuing to go down the wrong road even more.